All right, let me welcome you guys again. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you here today. Today's conversation isn't really about climbing the ladder faster or chasing the next shiny title. It's more about something that's more personal and in many ways more powerful, knowing when it's time to evolve and how to do that. Our guest today has lived the journey firsthand and is going to tell us a little bit about it today. Anthony is a seasoned learning and development leader, certified coach, and former Meta global learning partner. He has spent over a decade designing transformative learning experiences for teams across tech industry and more recently coaching individuals through high-stakes transitions. After leaving what some might consider a dream role, Anthony carved out a path rooted in alignment, not fear, and now he helps others do the same. Anthony, we're thrilled to have you here. Thank you for giving us some of your time. To get us started, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your career path? What led you to realize it was time for a change?
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Anthony. I am from Dublin, Ireland. I have worked in the learning industry for many years now at this stage. It's kind of starting to show my age. If I cut off my hands, you'll see the rings. So I kind of fell into it by accident, to be perfectly honest. I was working in a role in Dublin, and one of my friends at the time was doing a master's in human resource management and seemed like an interesting career path, and decided I would do the same master's as she did. And once I finished my master's course and started looking for work, the first opportunity I found was in learning and development. And what was funny about it is that my master's course didn't prepare me for that in the slightest, because the module I should have taken for L&D was clashing with something else I had to do. So I didn't actually end up even learning about L&D in my master's course. So it was my happy accident, as I kind of refer to it as. I was really lucky that the first role I landed in was in Intel. It was, and still is, a huge company, and really got supported by very strong mentors when I worked there. And I think probably without those mentors, I probably wouldn't have continued down the same path that I'm still in today. And had one person in particular who I looked at as, oh, this could be me in the future if I stick with this and if I actually enjoy it. And I'm lucky to say that it is something that I enjoyed. It played a massive role in kind of shaping the person that I am today. And I've shifted around different industries since then, because redundancies happen, big companies downsize. It's kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. And that led me through other companies like public sector companies, wholesalers for medical products, and then eventually into Meta, which was right at the start of COVID-19, which was a really unusual time to start a new job, especially for the fact that everything was fully remote. It was all working from home. So I didn't really have that personal connection with people. It was all done via video calls. And it was only after being there for about 18 months did I actually meet my first person who I worked with for the last 18 months in person, which was a really interesting way of working things. And I suppose when I started, I was looking at Meta as this beacon. It's like, oh my God, well, it was Facebook at the time, but it was like, oh my God, this is a huge company. It's a well-regarded company. This is going to mean amazing things for my career. And in many aspects it did, but in some it very much didn't. I think that's just the nature of the beast and understanding that a little bit more. When I kind of reached that moment in Meta where I was thinking, this isn't aligning with what I want, and there weren't any opportunities to move internally to figure that out of what other roles could look like, I went and did my qualification in coaching because it was something I was really interested in. It aligned a lot with my experience and my background and gave me a sense of purpose again. I kind of hit that point where I plateaued and felt that there wasn't really much else I could do with what was available to me in Meta. And when I finished my qualification, it kind of gave me that push to just give it a go, try it out. And I did what some people might call the harsh or brass move or whatever it might be, and actually left my role in Meta without even having another job lined up. I was fully convinced that I was doing the right thing, and I'm, in a sense, quite fortunate that I managed to land another role relatively quickly, but it was definitely something I wanted to pursue, and I wanted to have nothing holding me back. Those lovely golden handcuffs or the gilded cage or whatever you want to call these tech companies as they are. But I have no regrets. It's now 1 year since I've left Meta, and I was talking to Julia about this earlier. It's like I was happy to put Meta into the rearview mirror for a while and didn't even know that a group like this existed. And now I'm delighted that I can actually come back and offer some assistance to people who are either worked for Meta directly or work in big tech companies or worked in big tech companies. And for me, I think alignment trumps prestige. It's like you can have this big fancy job and this big fancy title, but if it's not working for you, something's got to change, and you have to try and figure out what that is. And for me, I think that was a turning point when I reached that point of, where am I going? What am I doing? And that's what led me into the position that I'm in right now.
Anthony, we need to take that alignment beats prestige and put it on a sticker so that people can have it. It's very, very well said. Thank you for that. Thank you for walking through it. Let's dig into some more questions. In your experience, what are some signs someone might be outgrowing their role, but they're ignoring it? I'm sure a lot of us have felt them, but it's hard to name them.
Absolutely, I'm sure. And I think for me, the phrase that sticks in my mind the most is, if the fear of staying the same outweighs the fear of change, it's time to change something about it. It's time to move. It's time to really challenge ourselves or yourself with something that breaks that mold. And I think a powerful question I ask people is, if nothing changed in 6 months, how would you feel with where you are right now versus where you think you'd be in 6 months? And I think that can be a really powerful catalyst for people to start examining, what am I looking for? What am I trying here? Am I beyond this role? Is there something else that I have to do? And if you've kind of lost that sense of challenge, or the butterflies or excitement start to wane and it's hard to kind of find those, or you're just fatigued and just going through the motions, or there's no spark with what you're doing anymore, for me, it's about just looking inwards and starting to reflect, what aligns with my values, what aligns with my goals, and do I even know what they are? I think is a very powerful place to start. What do I stand for? What am I looking for? What are my non-negotiables? If I were to stay in this role or move to another role, what am I absolutely not willing to change for myself or change about the companies or the experience that I'm looking for? I think it's comparing your personal values and what you want with what the company has to offer, I think is huge. And I know that there are so many things that hold us back from making those decisions. I'm definitely not underestimating the power of stability, having that sense of financial security. They're all really valid reasons. Family commitments, all of them are really valid reasons to stay where you are and feel like, you know, I'll just compromise what I want because there are other things that are weighing on my decision here, and that's totally fine. And I think it's something to really look at as well. I think if you can't find the spark with what you're doing or where you want to go, it's about trying to rediscover that. Even if it's within the same role, is there something else I can do? Can I take on a project? Can I try project management for the first time? Can I lead a diversity group, whatever it might be in the company that I work for? Is there something that I can latch onto that will give me that sense of feeling like myself again and feeling like what I'm doing is mattering? And looking at, do I have people I can refer to? Do I have people who I can reach out to help me understand what that might mean for me or where I need to go from there as well? So I think there are lots of signals that emphasize outgrowing your role, and it's about weighing up, can you versus should I? And looking at the entirety of your personal, your professional career and thinking, does this make sense to me right now? And if I know that I'm not feeling satisfied, then I need to start taking steps to change that.
Thank you for that. What resonated with me is that first thing you said. If the fear of things not changing is bigger than the fear of the change, then you should take another look. That's a really powerful quote. Well, you touched on this a little bit. The financial stability is probably one of the reasons a lot of people stay put. But what are some other reasons professionals, and especially big tech, will stay in a role that drains them, that makes them not want to wake up in the morning to go to work, even when they know it's like no longer the right fit for them?
Yeah, I think there are plenty of reasons. Obviously, we touched like compensation, benefits, all of those things are valid reasons for a lot of people to stay. But I think a lot of other things start to creep in, like certainty. I know what I'm doing. It might not be what I want to do, but I know what I'm doing. I know the space that I'm in. I have a solid network of friends or colleagues around me, that I have a structure that I like. It gives me a sense of purpose, even if I don't enjoy the role or think that it's giving me that sense of alignment with what I'm looking for. There's also a structure there. It's like, you know what it's like. You're comfortable in that space. And there's also, I think, the social capital that comes with it as well, right? In terms of how it looks outside to other people, that I'm working in this big company. I should be really enjoying this. This should be the dream role, or my, a dream come true when it comes down to it. But obviously fear is another big aspect of it as well. It's just fearing the unknown, not having that sense of certainty, not knowing what the next step is going to look like. And people might feel that the devil I know is better than the unknown, even if it's unfulfilling.
I hear that one a lot. The next question is more around being smart enough to understand when it's temporary and when it's time to go, right? How do you distinguish between this is a slump phase, we all feel them, and this is time to go?
Yeah, and I think the question I would ask someone is, how long have you felt like this? How long has this been going on for? Is this a temporary thing? Is this something that you're just in a bit of a pickle right now with what you're doing, but it's not a long-term thing? Then it's like, okay, it's just a slump that, it's a busy time, or it's just a period of not feeling very fulfilled. But if it's something that's happening regularly, or it keeps resurfacing, and you go from being in a slump to like a small moment of feeling joy or feeling fulfillment and back into it again, it's definitely a sign something deeper is going on when it comes down to that. And again, there could be lots of personal factors that lean into that. And, working in the tech world is a stressful place to be. Your health becomes very important, and especially your mental health as well, because it's relentless. It doesn't stop. It will keep going and keep going. And the better you are, the more it will take from you. And that's just how these companies and how performance cycles work. But it's definitely worth examining and looking inside and seeing, am I feeling like this for a long time, or is this just a short-term pain and it will get better? And I think ways to try and help out with that is to just look at your goals, look at your alignment, and seeing, does this match, and checking that out with what you can get within your job, keeping like a pros and cons list. It's not exactly the most technical thing to do in the world, but it can help you find that alignment and thinking, if I were to do this like this for the next year, would I be happy? Is this something that I'm willing to compromise? Or do I feel like, you know what, this isn't worth the time? It's not worth the investment, personally, mentally, whatever it might be. And would suggest that if that's how you're feeling, that it's that time to let go, or that you're feeling that, you know what, I need to change something about this, is do it gently. I wouldn't say to just pull the plug out and go for it and think, you know what, I'm just going to quit my job, or I'm going to do something like that. Really reflect on it. And it could be small things like just updating your CV or your resume, scanning the market, seeing if there's other roles out there that more align with what you're looking for, fit with your needs. And also the power of network. And I'm not a big person into like a forced networking event type of thing, but if you really connected with someone in a role, in your current role, in a past role, keeping that network open, because you genuinely don't know where those things could lead. And I've seen lots of examples, myself included, of where your network can really come in and lend you a hand when you least expect it. And for me, that was the case when I left Meta, is I didn't have a job really prospect there, but one of my friends, one of my colleagues from my role, had suggested or forwarded my information over to someone who knew was recruiting in the company that I'm in now. So I would say that there's a lot of power in networking, not the forced kind, but definitely the more natural kind of maintaining relationships with people. And if there is an opportunity to move internally or even take up a project that will give you different responsibility, I think would be really helpful to look at in those situations where if you're not in a financial or a physical position to move, to try something else different. And I think it's about trying to be curious and stay open-minded about it.
Wonderful. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how to start understanding that it's going on, and I'd love to move more into action and how you redefine this career now, and how you find success with alignment, which is something you mentioned from the very beginning. What does alignment look like in a tech career specifically, where it's all about the title, the prestige, the comp? How do you redefine that with alignment in mind?
Yeah, I mean, it can look very successful to have the big tech job and the compensation and the prestige and the title that comes with it. But for me, it's about looking in a little bit deeper at it and thinking about your intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So what I mean by intrinsic is what's coming internally from you, what's driving a sense of wanting to change things or wanting to realign what you like to do versus what you're doing right now. So it's a very internal process. And the extrinsic part is obviously how it comes across, how it looks like for others, how you value the career that you have. And everyone is different when it comes down to what their own alignment looks like. And you won't probably fully be able to understand what aligns with your expectations if you're not checking in with yourself and sense checking about what you're looking for. And with that, it's those kind of pros and cons lists. It's, does this fit right for me right now? Am I able to see the light at the end of the tunnel with all of this? And is the direction that I'm going in feeling like the right direction with what I want versus what I need? And thinking about alignments doesn't really necessarily mean you're rejecting ambition, because working in a tech company, there are lots of opportunities, but it may mean that you're just redirecting your alignment with intention rather than just looking at the title or the company or whatever it might be, but to think really deeply about what it is that you want and how you can potentially progress that and go forward with it.
And for some people, maybe the title is their alignment, right? And they're not feeling these feelings. And when you feel these feelings, you're probably realizing that the title is not where your alignment is, and you got to redefine it. I'd love to dig a little bit more in self-reflection. I've heard you mention it a few times now in our answers. What role in your mind does it play in getting clear on what you want, what you really want, rather than what will look good on as your next LinkedIn title?
Absolutely. Just to touch briefly on the previous part, I think, yeah, if you're happy with where you are, by all means, if the title is what you want and the company is what you want and you're happy with that, that's absolutely great. You're in a very strong position. But I think in terms of looking at the self-reflection, I think it's essential. It's something that I encourage myself to do. I encourage other people to do as often as you can. That for me, I would tend to do it even like every month and just really look at it. Like, what am I doing? Is this what I want? Is this aligning with what I need to help me move forward in my career? And it helps kind of shift that autopilot into making intentional decisions. If you do that self-reflection, I think it's really important. It's about, what do I value? We mentioned earlier on, like, what are my non-negotiables? What am I not willing to compromise on here? Your own personal integrity is going to lean a lot into the decisions you make, and how you reflect on those as well is hugely important. And I know for me personally, working for Meta and working with global operations, you see an awful lot of the not so pleasant sides of humanity. And you have to be willing to kind of check in with yourself and seeing, is this something that is still serving me? Am I happy to be in that space for this amount of time or not? And for me, it eventually came to that point where I was thinking, do you know what? This doesn't feel like it's worth it anymore. What is this costing me from a mental health perspective, from a physical perspective, from an alignment perspective, for what I value about myself and what I feel I can offer? And it doesn't have to be something that is, 5-year plan that's going to take you 5 years down the road. It could be just thinking, what does my next chapter look like? It doesn't have to be forever, but what does the next thing I want to do look like? And that can sometimes take some of the pressure off of making these big decisions that people often put down to like a career change or moving a different company. It's about trying to reframe that process. But I think self-reflection is something that as working professionals, something we should do constantly to make sure that where we are and what we're doing is still working and serving us, because it's the most important thing that actually serves you and not that it's serving someone else.
Out of curiosity, what does it look like for you? Is it like you're actually sitting down with pen and paper and thinking through questions, or is it more of a just organic on a Friday afternoon, you're just thinking to yourself?
It's a bit both. Sometimes like I kind of like to reframe sometimes with brushing my teeth. It's a very mechanical action that we do. And in those 2-3 minutes, I reflect or try and do it when I'm doing something that ordinarily we do on autopilot. It's something that we don't even think about. We just brush our teeth and off we go. Sometimes it's before I go to bed and just start thinking about it, like, where am I now? Is this still working for me? And then other times it'll be pen to paper, right? Let me write a list. What am I currently enjoying about what I'm doing right now? And what am I not enjoying? And how do I move more into the enjoyment category of that, less into the frustrations of the role that I'm doing? So it's a bit of everywhere, I think. And as long as you put some intentionality behind it and really try something, I think can really help you move out of autopilot and into making informed decisions.
Wonderful. All right, so let's move on to making decisions with clarity, and then we'll talk a little bit about some frameworks or some tips that you might give the rest of the group on how they can put some of this in action. What are some powerful questions someone should ask themselves before making a significant career change?
Yeah, it's a daunting process. It's something that isn't an easy decision to make. And I think probably less powerful to start with are the more kind of logical questions, like, are you financially ready to take that step? Are you mentally and emotionally prepared for that change? Because it can often be the fact that it's other factors that motivate our decisions, not just what we want. But a lot of people find change quite challenging, and it's a daunting process, and it's not easy, and it's completely understandable. Change by its definition is quite uncomfortable, and we do crave routine, and we like things to work a certain way that we want them to work at. And I think asking yourself those more logical questions first before thinking about transitioning or making a career move, I think, are things that really need to be teased out and understood. And for me, when I was making that same decision, it was sitting down and making those steps and talking to my partner. Are we ready for this? Is this something that we can support? Am I physically prepared for the things that come with that decision? And then you can start asking yourself the bigger questions of kind of like the why questions. Am I choosing this because it excites me or because I'm done with where I am? What is driving this decision for me? And like I mentioned earlier, if nothing changed in 6 months and I was exactly in the same place, how would I feel if this was me 6 months or 1 year into the future? And really nailing or honing in on what that experience might feel like. And that feels that if I'm in the same position in 6 months and 1 year and 2 years, whatever it might be, find out where that's coming from. Kind of dig deep, figure out why am I feeling like this? If I'm comfortable and happy, I should be happy with things in 6 months or 1 year. And if that's not the case, why? I think another question that comes to mind is what do we want more of, or what do we want less of in another role or in another career? It might not necessarily be like you're moving from what seems like a logical step in the career path that you're in, but if I were to change, what is it that I really enjoy and what don't I enjoy? And how am I going to make that decision? And it could be just sitting down and thinking, okay, here are the things I really like about what I do. It might necessarily mean that you have to continue that career path, but these are things that I really like and I want more of. And that could be, relationship building, human connection. It could be, well, I love working with data. I need to get more of that in my future job. I love making comparisons between data and work statistics, whatever it might be. Find out what that is and really start to understand that. And what don't I enjoy about what I do right now? And maybe if I'm feeling quite introvert, maybe the human connection piece is something that I'm in a role right now that I do a lot of, and I don't quite enjoy that. How can I move or pivot into something that is more kind of siloed or insular, and knowing yourself enough to know what that might look like? But I think the most powerful question that I ask myself and I ask other people is, what's the cost of staying? And that could be a financial thing, it could be a mental thing, it could be a physical thing. And is that cost worth more or less based on everything that's going on for you right now?
What's the
And
cost of staying? Another very good quote.
yeah, what's the cost of staying? What's it going to cost me in energy, in time, in commitment, in relationships, in personal stress, whatever it might be? Like, what is the cost of staying is something that I would often ask people to do.
I'm very excited about this next part. Now that we've talked about what it looks like and what are some of the questions and how to do introspection, let's put it in action. You've talked about creating this personal framework or finding this alignment for making career decisions. What does that look like? Tell us a little bit more in practice.
Yeah, I think when it comes to creating personal frameworks, it's important that it works for you. And that sounds easier said than done, but I think when people often think about creating a framework for making career decisions, that it has to be some big, rigorous strategy or laborious thing that they have to do, which often dissuades someone from doing it. And they're thinking, oh, it's too much work, it's too much hassle, I don't think I can invest the time into doing something like this. And it's a conversation with lots of people that they feel like it's just too much that goes into it. And what I would like to say to people is about reframing what that should feel like or what that should look like, and that it's personalized to you and it feels manageable for you. Because people look at others all the time. It's the nature of what we do. We're social creatures. We love to see, oh, someone else is doing this, therefore I should do the same thing. And that might necessarily be the best thing you can do in those situations. And understanding what really works for you is going to be hugely important. And that doesn't have to be, let me completely write out a 5-year career plan or 10-year career plan of what that's going to look like. But what does the next step look like? If I could bring it back to like the grassroots level, I just have a decision filter and sense check my direction, I think is important, rather than trying to make it a bigger thing or a huge process. It's about trying to bring it back to something that feels manageable and feels meaningful for you. It doesn't have to be a rigid plan, and it's okay to stay grounded as long as you feel like your values and your goals are being respected in this, and that it feels aligned to what you're looking for. I think it's really important. And the questions I'd be asking myself in this situation is, does this align with my values? Will this help me grow? Will this impact my life outside of work in a way that I'm okay with? And am I choosing this from alignment or out of fear? And I think they're powerful things to think about if you are looking at a big career transition, or even getting more responsibility with what you do. Maybe you never managed people before and you're looking at a career that is a people manager. It's about trying to understand, is this meaningful for me? And is this something that I can comfortably manage without reaching the stage of burnout or without feeling stressed about it? What are the small things I can do that will eventually lead to the big things? What are the smaller milestones I can break this down into, rather than it be a big, scary transition that feels honestly intimidating?
Wonderful. It makes me think of, like, in product development, we talk about the waterfall and the agile methodologies, like moving from that, make all the decisions now, to just concentrate on this first piece, one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
What are a few elements someone should include when they're building this roadmap for their next chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely define what your non-negotiables are. What are you 100% not willing to compromise on? And for me, that eventually got to the point where I think working in a global ops type of environment where you're looking at really graphic content and all that kind of stuff every day makes you start to think, would I want to keep doing this? And some people are wonderful and can keep doing that for a long time. But for me, that then became a non-negotiable. I was like, okay, if I look for another role, I want to make sure that it doesn't impact me in a way that is stressful or is going to impact my relationships with others. I think clarifying energy giving versus draining work is important to think about. So what gives you energy? And there's lots of simple techniques you can do with that. And one of them is like the cup method, like what's overflowing and what gives you energy versus what's taking away from your energy, I think is important to think about. Acknowledge your constraints. Definitely, there are things. We are living in the real world. We are living through what seems like a recession that's never ending. So financially, what are my constraints? Personally, what are my constraints? Do I have to look after family members? Is this a right time to do this right now? But when looking at it, like, start small. It doesn't have to be a big thing of, right, I need to make this big transition, but test some ideas. What are you thinking? What would you like to do? And test those things out. Talk to other people and try and bounce your ideas off of them. If you're in a position, try and upskill in certain things as well. So what have I always wanted to learn, but never gave myself the permission to do it? And if there were no restraints, should I just jump into it and give it a go and try something different? That's always been an interest for me. I think it's just about taking the next right step. It doesn't have to be about creating a huge process out of it. And a suggestion I would have to people is, if there's an area or something you're interested in, do you know people who work in that space? Could you go and sit down with them for a coffee or tea, or if you don't drink tea or coffee, could I just sit down with them and just talk about what they do and how they do it, and is that something you're interested in, especially if there are people in those types of roles you admire who can be a good role model for you in that as well. I would definitely be looking to encourage those smaller actions to be able to really build towards what the next chapter is without it being a big laborious process.
Wonderful. I think one of the things people worry about when they're making a change, especially if it's a bigger one, is this feeling or idea of starting all over and wasting what I've built so far. How do you help people work through that fear, and how do they explore new directions without feeling that way?
Yeah, and a lot of people will feel like that. Oh, I'm starting with something brand new. This feels unnatural. It feels like I'm going back to the beginning. And in some aspects you are, but you're going in from a place of experience is usually how I would work with people on it. You're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. You've already worked in a corporate environment. You've built up lots of skills, lots of transferable skills that you can take between one thing to another. Your way of communicating with others, how you solve problems, how you mine data, how you critically think. There are lots of things that you've built up that are transferable between one thing to another. And it's about understanding what they are and what skills you currently have and how you can transfer those over into something else. I think there's a lot of transitional things that people don't often think about. They're just like, oh, I'll be starting from brand new again, and I'll be starting at the bottom. And it's like, you may be starting from a role that is relatively junior to where you are now, but you're coming at it from a place of experience, and you've got a lot of that in your back pocket already, and it's not something that's wasted or anything like that. You can take it with you for sure.
Wonderful. You're starting from a place of experience. Another one I'm going to add to the list of what I learned in this session. You mentioned earlier that we're going through uncertain times and it feels like it's never ending. How can someone in this type of environment, how can they regain control of their path without feeling burnt out?
Yeah, change is the only constant we have, unfortunately. I don't know if anyone on the call has heard of like the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguous world that we live in. The only guarantee we have is that we're in constant state of flux. Everything is always changing, and it's something to try and shift away from that scariness of that, right? It's a scary thing to think about, that everything is so volatile. But for me, I think what works and what I've done with clients of mine is around the sphere of influence. So what's in your sphere of control? What's in your sphere of influence? And what's in your sphere of concern, or everything else that comes with it? So what can you physically control versus what's outside of your realm of control is a good place to start with this in this kind of uncertain world that we're living in. And when you look at yourself, your sphere of control, how can I spend my time I can choose what I want to learn. I can choose how I respond to challenges. They're all things that we can control ourselves. We have influence as well. Like how do I engage with my manager or my team to influence their decision making? How do I provide mentorship or shape culture in the ways or different ways of working? How can I encourage healthier norms within my team or within the company that I work? The things that we can have a bit of influence around. And then there's everything else that's completely outside of our control in terms of like company restructures, the financial world and economic shifts and all of that. And knowing that there's not really much that we can do to influence those things, but what we can do is focus on the things that are within our legitimate control and to stay grounded in your sphere of control and influence and try as best you can to not think about the things that are outside of your control.
Wonderful. Staying with that theme, what is one small step that everyone that's on this call today can do this week, and so they can feel more in control of their career and the next decision that they're trying to make?
Yeah, I think that if there's one thing I would say to take away is revisit your resume, have a look around the market and see what's out there and see what aligns with what you're looking for and what really adheres to your strengths. To not look at your weaknesses, but to really consider your strengths in this is one thing. If I was to give one tip, is if you're feeling in any sort of way like you're out of control or want more control, I think that's one thing you can definitely do.
You mean add AI everywhere you can in your resume?
Of course. GPT for the win.
Wonderful. All right, everybody go and take a look at your resume. I want to close out with one more question, then we'll make sure that I want to make sure there's enough time for people to ask questions if they have any. Let's define what career freedom looks like to you now compared to a few years ago when you started on this journey. Has that changed?
I think so. Honestly, I think I felt quite boxed in before. I didn't feel like I had autonomy over myself or what I could do or how I could do it. And it was only in those points of reflection when I did think about what I wanted when I was working for Meta that this coaching scenario even came out of it. It's always something I liked, but never something that I would have pursued unless I reached that moment of clarity with myself. And I honestly feel like I'm now in a much better position to make my own decisions that feel meaningful to me and give me the autonomy that I feel like I can have in making my own career, what I want from it and helping it feel aligned to what I do. I think is definitely something that, thinking back to where I was even say 4 years ago to where I am now, I definitely feel there's a lot more of like I'm not so much on a treadmill trying to keep up and trying to impress everyone else, but it's like, what am I doing to impress myself? What am I doing that really comes back to me and makes me feel like what I'm doing is adding value? And these decisions or these feelings or thoughts can come out of those moments of clarity where you just sit back and reflect and think, where am I going and what do I want?